The chamber of the Galactic Council was carved from shining black stone, older than most stars around it. It was a place where empires came to argue, to fight with words instead of weapons, but this time the silence was heavier than war. The Supreme Speaker, a tall alien with silver eyes, looked across the endless hall. Representatives from 100 species sat frozen, their scales, fur, and skin glowing under the pale lights. They had all read the report, and none of them wanted to be the first to speak. The report was thin, only a few pages, but it carried weight like a dying sun. It described a signal captured near Earth, a strange human broadcast that seemed like nothing, but hidden inside the noise, a single word had been spoken, a word that made machines stutter, a word that froze soldiers in place, a word that did not belong to the Council's tongue or any known code. The archivist who decoded it had collapsed afterward, trembling and whispering the word again and again. Even now he sat in the corner, his face pale, his eyes empty. The council guards had tried to calm him, but each time he spoke the word, their weapons flickered, their armor dimmed. It was not just sound, it was something more. The Supreme Speaker raised his hand, and the chamber lights dimmed. Representatives, his voice echoed, low and careful. We are gathered here because humanity has revealed something. He paused, letting the weight of the silence press against them. They have spoken their true name. Gasps filled the chamber, hisses, clicks, and whispers in alien tongues. Some called it impossible, others cursed, and a few simply bowed their heads in fear. True names were legends, old stories told before ships touched stars. A true name was said to carry power, not just identity, but dominion. If Earth had one, and if they had spoken it, then everything was about to change. One counselor, a winged creature with feathers of molten gold, stood trembling. This is myth, she said sharply. Old fairy tales to scare younglings. Humans cannot hold a true name. They are too young, too fragile. But even as she spoke, her feathers shook and her wings would not open. She knew the truth, and so did they all. Another, a scaled chancellor with 4 eyes, leaned forward, his voice like grinding stone. Every record of Earth is strange. Every war against them is heavier than numbers suggest. Every victory of theirs is too sharp, too fast, too final. He slammed his claw on the table. And now, this word, this cursed word. Do not tell me it means nothing. The chamber fell silent again, for a long time. Only the broken whispers of the archivist filled the air, repeating the word again and again. The word twisted differently each time, like it wanted to be heard in every tongue at once. No translator could record it, no machine could store it, but every council member felt it burning in their minds. The Supreme Speaker lowered his head, his silver eyes dull. We tried to erase it, he said softly. We ordered the record deleted. We ordered the archivist silenced, but the word will not die. His voice cracked. Every time it is destroyed, it returns, stronger. Fear spread across the chamber like wildfire. Leaders who had commanded fleets and crushed rebellions now looked like frightened hatchlings. They remembered every story of humans, the wars, the victories, the impossible survival, and now those stories seemed to point to one truth. Humans had been hiding something all along. A young representative, nervous and trembling, stood. But why now? She asked, her voice breaking. Why would humans reveal this name now, after all this time? Her question cut through the room like a blade. Every mind turned toward the same thought. If humans had chosen to reveal their name, then it was not an accident, it was a warning. The archivist suddenly stood, his body shaking, his voice no longer weak but booming. He shouted the word into the chamber and the lights shattered. The great stone walls shook, the stars outside the window blurred. Every guard dropped to their knees, their weapons dead in their hands. And then, silence. The archivist fell, lifeless, but the words still echoed in the minds of every being in the chamber. They could not say it, they could not stop hearing it. It had marked them. The Supreme Speaker rose again, his face pale, his voice trembling for the first time in history. This name cannot be spoken again, he ordered. Seal it, bury it, destroy all traces of it. But his words carried no strength, because they all knew the truth. The galaxy had already heard it. As the chamber emptied, whispers carried through the halls. Species that had hated each other now spoke in quiet fear of the same thing. It was no longer the council that ruled the galaxy. It was the shadow of Earth's true name. The Supreme Speaker stood alone at the end, his silver eyes staring into the dark window. The stars looked colder now, sharper like blades, and in the silence of his heart, one thought struck him harder than any weapon. "It's too late," he whispered. "The humans have already begun." Far below the shining halls of the council, beneath layers of stone and sealed gates, lay the forbidden archives. It was a place where records too dangerous for the galaxy were kept, maps of dead worlds, songs of war that could not be sung, weapons made only of words. Only a few beings in history had permission to walk here. Now, for the first time in 1,000 years, the doors opened again. The archivist's death in the council chamber had left a mark that none could ignore, but worse than his death was the word that still whispered in every mind. The council hoped the archives might hold an answer, a clue, a way to silence it. So they sent a young keeper, a thin alien with dark skin like obsidian and glowing green eyes. Her name was Saris, and though young, she knew the weight of knowledge could be heavier than war. She stepped into the archive halls, the air thick and cold. Rows upon rows of crystal tablets glowed with faint light, each one a record sealed away. She touched one at random and shivered as visions of ancient wars filled her mind. Armies burned by weapons older than the stars. But she pressed on, searching for one thing, Earth. The records of humanity were scattered and thin, as if someone had tried to erase them. But fragments remained, hidden in corners, wrapped in warnings. She pulled a crystal tablet free, its surface cracked, its glow faint. As she read it, her heart raced. It told of a war 5,000 years ago, long before humans had ships. A war where a nameless species tried to conquer the galaxy. The Council's ancestors fought them. But something strange happened. Each time the invaders reached Earth, their fleets crumbled. Not from weapons, not from armies, but from something unseen, the crystal warned. The world itself carries a word that shatters empires. Saris dropped the tablet, her hands trembling. The word, their true name, was not new, not invented. It was ancient, older than the Council, older than the empires that rose and fell. It was part of Earth itself, woven into its people, its soil, its sky. And every time it had been spoken in history, disaster followed. She searched deeper, pulling more tablets. Each one told the same pattern. Wars, invasions, and then silence. Armies vanishing, leaders broken, and always a single line, do not let them speak their true name. As she read, Saris felt the air around her change. The archive lights flickered and whispers echoed between the shelves. It was as if the records themselves were alive. She heard her own name spoken in the air, soft and cold. Her blood turned to ice. She turned and saw shadows moving between the rows. They were not guards, not counselors, but shapes made of memory and fear. The archives did not like when secrets were uncovered. Many who entered had never returned. Still, she pushed forward because she knew she had no choice. At the center of the chamber stood a sealed vault. Its lock glowed with blood-red light, warning that it had not been opened for ages. On the vault's surface, one word was carved in symbols she almost recognized. Her chest tightened, her ears rang. It was the same word the humans had broadcast, Earth's true name. The moment she touched the vault, her mind split into fire. Visions filled her head. Humans walking across battlefields without weapons. Alien generals falling to their knees at the sound of a word. Stars burning out when the name echoed too loud. And through it all, one truth. Humans were not becoming powerful. They had always been powerful. The vault opened with a slow hiss. Inside, a single crystal pulsed with light, brighter than the others. It carried a warning written by the first council itself. Saris read the words with trembling lips. If Earth speaks its name, the galaxy will remember its master. She staggered back, her heart pounding. This was no myth, no accident. The humans had chosen this moment, this time, to speak. It was not defense, it was declaration. Suddenly, the ground shook. The whispers in the archive grew louder, repeating the name in every tongue. Saris clutched the crystal as shadows closed in. The shelves cracked, the lights burst. She ran, her feet pounding against the stone as the archive seemed to collapse behind her. When she finally burst through the gates into the light above, her hands burned from gripping the crystal too hard. Council guards rushed to her side, but she pushed past them. She knew what she carried, and she knew what it meant. The council had been wrong. The humans had not just spoken their name by chance. They had chosen to speak now because the galaxy was weak, divided, trembling. And with that one word, Earth had claimed more than survival. They had claimed destiny. Cirrus fell to her knees, clutching the crystal, her voice breaking as she whispered to herself, "The galaxy is already theirs." The word had spread, not through voices, not through ships, but through the stars themselves. It was whispered in dreams. It was carried in static. It was etched into the minds of machines. No matter how hard the council tried to bury it, the true name of Earth was alive. Across the galaxy, chaos began. In the war fleets of the Dravic Empire, soldiers stood ready to launch against rebels. But when their admiral gave the order, his voice cracked. The name of Earth slipped from his tongue instead, and every engine died at once. Thousands of warships drifted powerless, their crews staring in horror as their screens filled with a single word. On the ice world colonies of the Kalari, children woke screaming the name. Their parents tried to hush them, but the sound shook the walls. Power grids failed, crops froze, and the sky itself split with lightning. The elders whispered in fear, "The name has chosen to be remembered." Everywhere the word was spoken, systems failed. Artificial intelligences burned out in sparks. Fleets vanished into silence. Even the oldest warlords, creatures who had crushed worlds, now shook like frightened prey. The galaxy was not simply panicking, it was unraveling. Back in the council, chaos reigned. Representatives shouted over one another, their voices sharp with fear. "This is sorcery," screamed one. "No," hissed another. "This is science we do not understand." But none of their words could stop the truth that pressed into their minds. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy had heard. Sarah stood before them with the crystal she had taken from the forbidden archives. Her hand still burned from its touch, her eyes wide with visions she could not escape. She spoke, her voice trembling but steady enough to carry. "This is not." The counselors shouted back, desperate. "Then we must destroy them now, before it is too late." But even as the words left their mouths, they sounded weak, for if one word could tear fleets apart, what would war bring? No one wanted to be the first to test humanity's limits. Outside, across sectors, ships sent to monitor Earth reported strange things. One captain whispered the name into his ship's log. The moment he did, his vessel folded into silence, gone without trace. Another fleet fired weapons into empty space, trying to erase the echo of the word, but their shots curved, missing, and struck their own ships instead. The galaxy watched in horror as fear turned armies into their own executioners. The panic was no longer just fear of humans, it was fear of themselves, fear of what they might do next. In every empire, leaders locked themselves away, issuing orders no one followed. Citizens whispered in streets, "The humans have spoken and the galaxy belongs to them." In secret, rebel groups rose, carrying banners with Earth's name scratched across them. Entire colonies refused the Council's orders, swearing loyalty to humans they had never seen. The word was no longer just a sound, it was a revolution. The supreme speaker of the council stood high above the chamber, his silver eyes dim. For the first time in history, his voice shook. "If this continues, our galaxy will burn without a single shot fired." He looked at Saris, desperate. "Tell us, what do the records say we must do?" Saris clutched the crystal, her voice cracking. "They say there is no stopping it," she whispered. "They say the name cannot be silenced once spoken. They say every empire will fall, until only humans remain." A heavy silence filled the chamber. Counselors who once shouted now stared at each other with wide, empty eyes. It was the silence of prey that had realized the predator was over. Eddie behind them, suddenly alarms blared across the chamber. A fleet at the edge of the Orion Arm had vanished, not destroyed, not attacked, simply gone. The only transmission received was the word, repeated once, the same word Earth had spoken. Panic spread through the council. Some fled the chamber, others screamed for war, others begged for peace, but no matter their choice, none of them had power anymore. The galaxy was no longer ruled by armies or councils. It was ruled by a whisper from Earth. And somewhere far beyond the Council's reach, humans sat silent. They did not invade, they did not explain. They simply waited, because they knew, as the galaxy was only beginning to understand, that terror was the greatest weapon of all. The galaxy demanded answers. Every empire, every fleet, every colony turned its eyes toward Earth. They wanted to know the meaning of the name, the reason for the chaos. And so, the Council gathered all its power, all its authority, and sent a direct message to humanity. It was a message that shook the stars. Earth, the Supreme Speaker declared, his silver eyes unsteady. You have spoken something forbidden. You have spoken your true name. Tell us what it means, or the galaxy will have no choice but to act. The message was broadcast through every channel, carried on every frequency. It reached Earth within hours. The galaxy held its breath. They expected a reply, a warning, or a threat. But Earth gave none. No signal, no voice, no explanation. The humans answered with silence. That silence was louder than war. In the halls of the Council, leaders trembled. Silence meant power. Silence meant confidence. If humans refused to answer, it could only mean one thing. They had no fear. Across the stars, fleets waited for orders. Commanders begged the Council for direction, but the Council could not agree. Some demanded immediate invasion. Others demanded surrender. And all the while, Earth stayed silent. Ceres stood at the center of the chamber, the crystal from the archives glowing faintly in her hands. She felt the weight of the silence pressing against her chest. She remembered the words carved inside the vault. If Earth speaks its name, the galaxy will remember its master. Now, Earth had spoken, and the galaxy trembled. But their silence afterward was worse, far worse. Whispers filled the chamber. What if they are waiting for us to move first? What if silence is their declaration of war? What if they do not see us as worth answering? The questions grew like fire. Fear turned into paranoia. Empires began accusing each other of secret alliances with Earth. Fleets clashed in border zones. Convinced their rivals had struck a deal with the humans, the galaxy was tearing itself apart, and Earth had not fired a single shot. On distant worlds, citizens prayed to Earth. Rebels carried banners with Earth's name painted in blood. Entire populations began to refuse the Council's authority. Why listen to the Council, they said, when Earth is the true power? And the silence of Earth gave strength to their rebellion. One by one, Council members broke. Some resigned. Some fled. Some simply disappeared. The chamber that once held order now held only fear. The Supreme Speaker stared into the void outside the great window. For the first time in his long life, he could not see the future. Ceres, clutching the crystal, stepped forward, her voice shaking but strong enough to be heard. You do not understand, she said. This is not war. This is not peace. This is something else. The counselors turned to her, desperate. What do you mean? They demanded. Ceres closed her eyes, her voice breaking. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. They want us to destroy ourselves, and we are obeying. Her words struck the chamber like a blade. Every leader knew she was right. Already fleets burned each other, colonies rebelled, alliances shattered, all because of one word followed by silence. And still, Earth waited. Their ships did not move, their armies did not march, but the galaxy felt crushed under their shadow. For the first time, it was clear Earth did not need to fight for dominance. They had already won it. The Supreme Speaker's hands shook, his silver eyes dimming. What do we do? He whispered, but no answer came. Ceres looked at him, her voice a whisper. We cannot win against silence. The more we scream, the stronger they become. As if to prove her words, the chamber shook. A sudden transmission arrived, carried on every frequency again, but it was not a human voice. It was a reflection of their own voices. The Council's demand repeated back at them, word for word, their threats echoed in the air. But with no human face to blame, panic spread through the chamber. Some clawed at their ears. Others screamed that Earth was inside their minds. The silence had not been empty after all. It had been watching, listening, and now it was speaking through them. And still, Earth remained unseen. No voice, no warning, no army, only silence. And in that silence, the galaxy began to crumble. The The council chamber, once the heart of order in the galaxy, had become a battlefield of voices. Every representative shouted over the other, their words filled with fear and rage. Silence from Earth had broken their unity, and now suspicion poisoned every corner. One chancellor, his scaled body trembling, slammed his claws against the marble floor. "You knew this was coming," he roared at another. "Your species has always whispered with humans. You betrayed us all." The accused, a tall creature with glowing wings, screamed back, "Lies. It is you who hides alliances. You want Earth's favor for yourself." The chamber shook with fury. Guards ran, ushed to separate the leaders, but even they faltered. Some of them whispered the human name under their breath as if testing its power. And each time it was spoken, lights flickered, weapons dimmed. The word itself had become a curse they could not resist. Sarah stood to the side, clutching the crystal, her heart racing. She saw it clearly now, clearer than any of them. The humans had not needed to destroy the council. The council was destroying itself. Whispers echoed across the chamber, rumors that one faction had already sent envoys to Earth begging for protection. Others claimed fleets had been ordered to surround the Sol system, though none dared approach. Each rumor carried weight because no one trusted anyone anymore. In the shadows above, the Supreme Speaker sat in silence, his silver eyes dim. He knew the chamber was already lost, unity was gone, and soon the council would be as well. Still he tried to speak, his voice weak but desperate. "If we do not stand together, we will fall apart." But his words meant nothing, because they already had. Beyond the council walls, the cracks widened. Entire empires turned their fleets not toward Earth but toward one another. Border skirmishes erupted. Not over territory, but over fear. "Your people serve Earth," one empire accused. "You are traitors," another screamed. Worlds burned under their own paranoia. On one distant colony, a governor ordered the name of Earth carved into the sky with orbital weapons. He declared loyalty to humans, though he had never seen one. His people cheered, believing they had chosen the winning side. Other colonies rioted, demanding their leaders do the same. The galaxy was fracturing piece by piece, and Earth had lifted no hand. Back in the chamber, Saris raised her voice, her tone sharp and cutting. "Look at yourselves," she shouted. "You are tearing the galaxy apart, and humans have not even spoken a word since." The council froze, their eyes wide. Her words were truth, but truth was a blade. Some stared at her, with fear, others with hatred, because truth was harder to face than silence. A counselor with dark steel skin leaned forward, his voice filled with venom. "Maybe you are the human ally. Maybe you are the traitor who brought their name back into our world." His words struck like fire. Others joined him, pointing at Saris, accusing her of betrayal. Her hands tightened on the crystal, her voice breaking. "I am no traitor. I am the only one who still sees the truth. Earth does not need me. Earth does not need any of us. They already have everything they want." But the chamber was deaf to reason. In their fear, they wanted someone to blame, and Saris had become the perfect target. The guards moved forward, unsure whether to protect her or arrest her. The Supreme Speaker raised his trembling hand, but no one listened. His authority had collapsed with the Council's unity. And now the galaxy stood on the edge of war, not against Earth, but against itself. Alarms blared suddenly, sharp and cold. A fleet in the Outer Rim had turned its guns on its own allies. The transmission filled the chamber, screams of commanders shouting at one another. In the background, the name of Earth echoed over and over, spoken in dozens of tongues, until silence fell, and the fleet was gone. The chamber froze in terror. Some counselors cried, others collapsed. No one could deny it anymore. The galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone imagined, and humans were not the cause, they were the trigger. The Supreme Speaker stood for the last time, his voice weak. "This council no longer rules. We are already broken. Our unity is gone. Our power is ash." His silver eyes dimmed as he whispered, "And Earth does not even need to fight us. We fight ourselves for them." Saris clutched the crystal, her heart heavy. She realized the prophecy was true. If Earth speaks its name, the galaxy will remember. Its master. But worse than remembering was the truth she now saw clearly. The galaxy had not only remembered, it had chosen to obey. For weeks the galaxy had waited. For weeks Earth had stayed silent. That silence had destroyed fleets, shattered empires, and broken the council apart. But silence was not the end. It was only the beginning. In the ruins of the council chamber, voices still fought. Some demanded surrender to Earth, others demanded war. But their words carried no weight anymore. No one listened, because everyone feared the same thing. The day Earth finally answered. It came without warning. No buildup, no negotiation, no fleet moving toward the stars. Just a transmission carried on every channel, across every frequency. One word, Earth's true name. The moment it was spoken, the galaxy shook. Ships froze in space, their reactors burning out, planets trembled, skies cracked with lightning. Even the strongest leaders fell to their knees, hands clutching their heads, because the word was no longer sound. It was inside them. Every being felt it, not just in their ears, but in their blood, their bones, their minds. The word bent reality around it. It carried weight, like gravity, like fire. It was not a name, it was a command. On distant worlds, citizens screamed the name without knowing why. Armies dropped their weapons, machines tore themselves apart. Stars pulsed as though echoing the sound. The galaxy had heard Earth, and the galaxy had obeyed. In the chamber, Ceres collapsed to her knees, the crystal in her hands glowing like fire. Visions filled her eyes. She saw ancient wars, fleets erased without battle. She saw empires kneeling, rulers weeping. She saw the truth. Earth had always held this power. They had only chosen to reveal it now. The supreme speaker tried to rise, but his legs failed. He pressed his silver eyes shut, his voice trembling. "This is not language," he whispered. "This is dominion." And then, as suddenly as it came, the transmission ended. The word echoed once more, fading into silence. But silence was no longer empty. Now it was filled with fear. Across the stars, rebellion spread like wildfire. Worlds declared loyalty to Earth without ever speaking to a human. Others destroyed themselves trying to silence the name. Fleets disintegrated, empires collapsed. Not because Earth fought them, but because they could not survive knowing Earth could speak again. On one battlefield, a general screamed to his soldiers, "Stand, fight, resist." But the word of Earth slipped from his tongue instead. His army fell to their knees, not in defeat but in worship. The galaxy had never seen such a weapon. Not a ship, not a gun, not a bomb, just a name. Back in the chamber, Ceres clutched the crystal, her voice shaking. "They have spoken," she whispered, "and now there is no turning back." Her words carried across the hall. The counselors stared at her with hollow eyes. They knew it too. This was no war they could win. This was no battle they could fight. This was submission. The supreme speaker, broken and trembling, raised his voice one last time. "We are not rulers anymore. We are subjects." His silver eyes dimmed as he whispered, "Subjects of Earth." And somewhere, far away on a blue world under a golden sun, humans sat in silence. They did not invade. They did not explain. They simply waited because they knew the galaxy was already theirs. The galaxy had changed. It was not war that changed it, not fleets, not armies. It was a single word spoken once, Earth's true name. After that moment, nothing was the same. Empires that once ruled with iron claws now trembled like children. Fleets that had crushed whole worlds refused to leave their docks. Leaders who had commanded billions now locked themselves away in silence, because silence was safer than speaking. Speaking meant risking the word. On distant colonies, people painted Earth's name across their homes. They sang it in their streets. They carved it into their skies. They believed Earth was now the center of destiny. Even rebels and slaves rose up, shouting the word as though it was freedom. Their masters fell, not from battle but from fear. No weapon could stop the power of belief. The council was finished. Its chamber stood half empty, its seats abandoned. The supreme speaker no longer commanded. He only sat in silence, his silver eyes dim. He knew his words carried no power anymore, because one word had replaced them all, Earth's word. Ceres walked the broken halls of the council, the crystal still glowing faintly in her hands. She had seen everything collapse. She had watched fleets tear themselves apart. She had heard rulers whisper the name as their last breath. She understood now, this was not war, it was revelation. The galaxy had not discovered Earth's name. Earth had allowed it to be found. In hidden chambers, the last surviving counselors argued in hushed tones. "Perhaps we can still resist," one said. "No," whispered another. "The people have already chosen. They no longer follow us. They follow Earth. The silence that followed was heavier than any death sentence. They knew it was true. Messages spread across the stars, not from Earth but from its believers. Worlds declared themselves under human protection. Colonies raised banners of Earth's oceans and skies. Though most had never set foot on the planet, the galaxy was reshaping itself, not with conquest, but with fear and devotion. And still, Earth said nothing. No speeches, no promises, no threats, only silence. It was a silence that crushed more than fleets. It crushed hope. For the first time in history, the galaxy understood it had no control. It could build ships, it could form armies, it could scream threats. But against a single word, none of it mattered. Every empire had fallen before Earth's silence, and every empire would fall again if Earth ever chose to speak once more. Sarah stood at the council's great window. Looking out at the stars, she thought of the old warning carved into the vault. If Earth speaks its name, the galaxy will remember its master. And she knew now it was no prophecy. It was truth. The galaxy remembered and the galaxy obeyed. The Supreme Speaker rose for the last time, his voice weak and trembling. "We are no longer rulers," he whispered. "We are servants of silence." He lowered his head, his silver eyes wet. "And silence belongs to Earth." Across the stars, whispers became oaths. Oaths became law. Law became terror. The galaxy bent without a chain, without a war, without a fight. Because fear was stronger than any weapon, and Earth had mastered fear. On their blue world under the golden sun, humanity did not march. They did not build fleets. They did not conquer. They only waited, silent and patient. And the galaxy trembled because they knew one word could end them all. The council was gone. The empires were broken. The stars themselves seemed smaller now, and the shadow of Earth stretched over everything. The terror that followed was not the sound of war. It was the silence of submission, the silence of a galaxy that finally knew the truth. Earth did not need to rise. Earth had always been above them.